All right, let's make some jerky. Try not to get overcomplicated with it, but basically what I'm tossing in, just a general pot here because I'm making a 24-hour marinade. Some hot sauce, Worcester. I've already dumped that in. I'm gonna get some pepper going. And the whole point is just to get some flavor, some spice, some acid to break down the meat a little bit. And I'm not being too, I have some seasoning packets. I'm not overthinking, right? Like this thing is going to sit in this marinade. I've got about 3.5 pounds of meat. Let's kind of see, we got a little delightful looking mixture in there. I have my 4 spices. All these are just basically like some combination of red pepper, salt. One thing I normally like to put in also is cayenne, because the cayenne actually carries with it not that initial tongue taste of spice, but that late hit of spice, that aftertaste of spice that some people, well, me, I like in jerky. So I'm gonna put this in the marinade now. Again, for the marinade, frankly, it's gonna tenderize the meat and get some of the flavor in there, but most of the flavor is truly gonna come from the dry rub later. I tossed some soy sauce in there, and you know, anywhere from 2 to 5 tablespoons. I already put a little bit of that in already. Super important, I always am getting like a vinegar in there. And so this is this is apple cider vinegar, and just a bit. I tossed some honey in there because I like the play of the sweet and spicy. And then every now and then, just, you know, a little nip of whiskey. Not too much. Gotta save some for other purposes. Okay, did I put everything I wanted in there? Oh, no, not yet. Most important ingredient, salt. Toss that salt in. And I'm gonna switch that around. All right, so like that's feeling pretty good. Get that mixed up. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just want to make sure all the spices didn't just clump up together in one little spot. Another thing I'm not putting in this one, but like if you get like a cheap barbecue sauce, it's like pretty good to put in there, and that'll get you some of that sugar, because there's always a lot of sugar in it, but if you don't have a barbecue sauce, that's why I toss that honey in there. Okay, so now the game switches to cut that meat. So here I have a London broil that I had frozen. Technically it's a top round, but it's semi-thawed. Now this is important because this is where freaking work has to happen, and you need to be breaking this up and cutting it as thin as possible. And that's really dependent on getting it semi-thawed so that it holds its shape and doesn't give away. So this is pretty good. And you want that lean cut of meat. So top round, I mentioned London broil, that's where it gets in there. So the slicing, I'm gonna put you over here. You wanna go across the grain of the meat, because otherwise you're gonna end up with very sinewy, very chewy meat. And I want it as thin as possible. My game here is, can I make it like paper? And when you got that, you know, the first ones I'm gonna get it at an angle, but I'm like going nice and thin, and I'm doing it at a larger angle because I actually like getting a good amount of surface area. You can kind of see how thin that is. And this is a really nice sharp knife that I do not let anybody else use, and I hide from other people because many people don't use knives properly. So again, you can kind of see what I'm aimed at here. Trying to get that nice thin slice. I'm gonna keep going. You know, this is a good time to listen to a podcast, contemplate your life's choices, because you're choosing to make jerky. Well, you're choosing to watch a video of somebody make jerky. So that's more on you than on me. Again, look at that, there you go. Yeah, that's a good paper thin. And you know what, I think about it, there are a lot of different flavors and styles. But for me, I like getting a high flavor to meat ratio. In order to do that, you just need less meat, right? And I'm gonna be doing a dry rub, and I'll show you later, of the jerky. And that dry rub is really gonna impart most of the flavor. Again, the marinade, it's to tenderize it and get some of the inside of the meat to pick up some of the spice. But I'll tell you, like, even if you do it shorter period of time, it's really about the dry rub. And then the thickness of this meat will let it dehydrate all the better. And I like it crispy. And so you're gonna get a crispier bit of jerky when it's this thin. And you can kind of see I'm starting really at the top, keeping the angle like that. So you kind of get larger slices now as I'm going through. All right, you get it. I'm cutting meat. And then I'm gonna put this meat in there and stir it all up and leave it for 24 hours. I don't think I need to show you how to cut any more meat, but this is gonna take me a while. So I'm just gonna go ahead and catch up with you later. All right, so I have thinly sliced, beautifully, all of these, slowly, which I've shown you in the time lapse, again with a sharp knife. And now I've bagged one part, and I'm gonna do this other one, and I'm gonna redo a little bit of some of this as well. The tough thing is making sure you get the coating on all of this stuff. It's easy when you just toss it into a pot for some of them to stick together. And then if you ever important cayenne, I like that cayenne in there. Get that cayenne going. Here's a fun one. This is called liquid smoke. Liquid smoke will just give it, well, kind of like as it sounds. It smells like mesquite wood. I always make sure I've got my apple cider vinegar. A little bit of that going. Great, and now the game is get all the meat in separately. So I don't want to dump it all in at the same time. You can kind of see I've put just some in to start, and I'm just going to be making sure it coats each one of these pieces because they tend to stick together, and it's really annoying because you want all of the sides of this thinly cut meat to get exposure to your nicely made marinade instead of having them stick together like little goofs. Don't do that. And sometimes I'll toss them in one by one or as I go cutting. In this case, I'm doing it all at once. Layer, stir, fold, mix, and then I'll toss it into a bag at the end and push it around inside one of those Ziploc bags so I can put it in the fridge and it doesn't take up too much room. All right, this is taking all day. And you go, meat. Let's go. Note I cut off some of the fat though. If you're getting a lean cut of meat, you won't need to worry about that as well. But I'll tell you what, this is even maybe more marbly than I like. I'll be honest, as far as a cut of meat goes, because fat doesn't really turn into good jerky. It turns into something gross. So you want that leaner the better kind of cut of meat, and you want to cut off large bits of fat because it just gets chewy and disgusting. So there you go. So you can kind of see it's all mixed up. That's really what you're looking for. No sort of dry sides in there. And good, 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 good. And sometimes if you have two different batches or you're marinating two different ways, you can try different flavors on it. But again, really the actual flavor is going to be coming from the dry rub. All right, we'll catch you on the next phase of this. All right, forgive the camera angles because frankly, it's just me shooting and I've made this video for like 2 people that are interested in making gluten-free jerky. All right, so we're gonna get to seasoning in just a second. I've marinated, I'm gonna go get it. Marinated this batch and we showed you how that all happened, and now it's time to do some fun stuff, which is setting this up on the dehydrator. This thing is like a Presto. I don't know, it's like $70 on Amazon. What's important is that it can get up to 165 degrees, and that's important to me They say you can kind of get away with 140. I like to dial it all the way up. I like to cook it hot and long. So 165 for a long time because I like very crispy jerky. All right, what am I doing now? I am going to make the dry rub, the stuff I'm going to toss on top and season it. This is where most of the flavor comes from. So this is, I don't know, some habanero salt. I'm like kind of playing around. This is a little old, so great. But it's a habanero sauce, so it's a little spicy. I'm going to toss in some nutmeg. Yeah, that's going to take forever. I'm going to open that up. There we go. And I'm going to get cayenne, my absolute favorite, because that's the kind of spice that hangs on to the end of when you're done chewing. You know, that spice that leaves after, not up front for flavor palette. And this is ground coriander. And this is a little depth of flavor, adds a little something interesting to the sort of middle of the road. And yeah, I got the nutmeg in there. Okay, now, because that's coarse salt, I'm gonna grind it all up. And also, it's important, like, if you're gonna be mixing putting more than one kind of dry ingredient on your jerky, if you want any manner of like evenness and not just sort of like, oops, I went a little long on, that's a cayenne one, and that's the thing. If you want a consistent flavor, you really have to pre-mix it so that you're getting one bit of consistent note on it. Another thing to be careful with, I've done this so many times and ruined so many jerkies, is if you're grabbing like random spices, you got to consider that there is salt a lot of times in a lot of these, and you can way over salt your jerky. All right, let's see how we're doing here. That is pretty good. Ooh, yeah, it's got some punch. All right, I'm gonna take an old, come on thing. I'm gonna take, not even gonna edit that. All right, I'm gonna take this old spice container. Oh, it stays with you. It's gonna be the good stuff. And I'm gonna dump it into an old spice container so I can control the distribution of this tastiness. So, sheet of paper, make up a funnel because I don't actually have this stuff. And there we go, huzzah. And there is my special blend ready to go. Just remember, after you've made something weird in here, don't put it back because some unsuspecting person could assume that that is garlic, and it is not garlic. Okay, so let's move on to the next step, making a mess in your kitchen. So here's my Presto thing. You want to make sure that you've got your protective sheet down here. If you were like me and you have lost it, use a piece of tin foil. And there you go, you're back in action. Okay, now, painstakingly slow part. There are a lot of folks who suggest that you should dry your jerky before putting it on, taking off the marinade. My thinking on the matter is I cook it for so long that it's going to dehydrate all of it anyway. Of course, the whole point is to get rid of the moisture that's in here. But honestly, like, whatever. It's going to dry out because I'm going to leave it for 8 hours at 165. So, you know, it doesn't matter that it's a little bit wet to start because guess what? That liquid is going to be gone. What's more, like, I went through making a tasty marinade on here and I feel like I'm losing like that extra bit of flavor. So, you know, there's a little extra glazing that can happen and get sucked into the meat. So this is just, don't worry, I'll do the time lapse soon. But this is important though. You kind of see this final step of setting it up. And yeah, I got all of that in there. Oh, we got some small bits, some big bits. This is where I am wishing I had gotten a larger top round and larger slices, because this is the headache of like, oh, here's like these tiny pieces that are all scattered out, but if they're overlapping, they'll get stuck together and they won't dry properly. And then you're gonna have inconsistent jerky. Oh, what's that? All right. Okay. Still some space. You really want to use up that space because nothing's more frustrating. You get to the top and you're like, uh-oh, I'm running out of space. And I kind of cheat with this. I actually have extra racks that I got to put on top of it just to maximize the space, so I just added a few extra bonus racks onto this one, which can be an issue if you're doing it for a shorter period of time, but not, again, when you're doing it for like 8 hours. So that's the thing. Okay, you can kind of see I've spread it around, and now, don't forget which one is the right one, our magical thing. And we want an even coating. This is, you can now realize why I wanted to mix all that together. So I'm just, you know, sprinkling across tiny bits of meat. So it could be easy, hypothetically, if I were going through mixing one after another of these things, to make a mistake, get too much cayenne or salt on one, and boom, there you go. All right, let's see if we can speed up the rest of this. Well, this is a faster way to do it. It took me a little longer in person, but I am distributing these as evenly as possible across, not overlapping, and seasoning as I go, setting it up for 9 hours, 165 degrees outside. And this is important because it can get pretty smelly inside your house, and putting it kind of blocked off under a chair so that the local animals don't have at it. All right, we'll wait to the next step. All right, here we go. Moment of truth. Let's see how we did making jerky. I'm just gonna open up 2 layers so you can actually see it. All right, what do we got? Okay, so super crispy again. This was 9 hours, 165 degrees. I left it out overnight outside so I didn't turn my house into a barbecue joint. And looks like I have pretty good flavor throughout. And that's what you're aimed for. Oh, that tastes pretty good. I recommend here putting the bits in here for later in an airtight. There we go. Save for later. And there you have it. That's how to make a thin style of jerky that has a little bit of habanero, cayenne, good flavor, thin and crunchy. Good luck.